And we'll call the meeting to order for the Town of Newfields Select Board. A couple of administrative issues. My name's Hobie Harmon. I'm chair of the board.
Catherine Tarnowski.
Mark Casper.
And what we will do, as we've done the last meeting, we'll ask you if you're going to speak to the board to approach the microphone in the center there. And the reason is we may be able to hear you, but what happens on the audio, you cannot hear it on the audio if you're not in close proximity to the microphone. I did send an email to the planning board chair and the CBA and the Conservation Commission to try and adhere to that, just so it makes this investment worthwhile. The first thing we're going to do tonight, we're going to hear the third hearing for the special event permit ordinance. Hold on, here we go. Mark, put your pencil down.
Sure.
Okay.
It's exciting. This is exciting stuff.
All right, special event permit ordinance, section 1, purpose. Purpose of this policy is to establish guidelines and procedures for the issuance of permits for large meetings, shows, competitions, events, and functions by the Newfields Select Board. The town of Newfields has a legitimate interest in protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizens and visitors who may be at risk from such gatherings, which may be held from time to time in the community. Such gatherings must provide for the orderly and safe use of public streets, life safety preparedness, and adequate parking and sanitary facilities for use by all members of the public. Section 2, authority. Newfields Select Board is granted authority under RSA 286 to require the issuance of permits for various types of events before such events are permitted to take place within the community. Further, the Newfields Police Chief is granted authority under RSA 105:9 to require police details for such events determined by the chief to potentially A, involve traffic-related problems, or B, lead to a public disturbance or public nuisance, or C, endanger public health, safety, or welfare, and assess the sponsor with the cost of such police details. Lastly, the Newfields Fire Chief is granted authority under RSA 153, the State Fire Code, and applicable National Fire Protection Association codes and standards to regulate outdoor events, carnivals and fairs, and indoor public assemblies. Section 3, definitions. A special event is a meeting, show, competition, event, or other function as defined under RSA 286:1, 286:2, or 105:9, whether held indoors or outdoors, held on public or private property, or streets that can reasonably be expected to cause a public gathering of 50 or more persons that is not part of the normal course of business at the location. Special events shall not, I say again, special events shall not include private family events such as weddings, funerals, graduation parties, etc., on property owned or residentially rented by the family, or fundraising events for religious or other charitable organizations that are located in Newfields when the entirety of the event takes place at the facility of that organization. Community event is a special event sponsored in whole or in part by the town of Newfields. Section 4, permit requirement. All special events within the town of Newfields require a permit from the Newfields Select Board. All applications for special events in the town of Newfields shall be reviewed by town staff as appointed by the Newfields Select Board, which should include the police chief, fire chief, road agent, and when applicable, the health officer. Section 5, application procedure. All requests for a special event permit shall be submitted in writing to the Newfields Town Clerk on an application form approved by the Select Board a minimum of 30 days prior to the event. B, such application form will provide requirements and guidelines for the following types of special event plans. 1, site plan. 2, security crowd control plan. 3, traffic control parking plan. 4, fire emergency plan. 5, ambulance medical service plan. 6, ticket distribution plan. 7, sanitary facilities plan. 8, alcohol/food service plan. Upon receipt by the Newfields Town Clerk of a completed application and required application fee, applications shall be distributed to the police chief, fire chief, road agent, and when applicable, the health officer. Section 6, guidelines for review. 8, the town shall act on all applications for special events in accordance with section 2 through 4 to ensure compliance with all state laws, town ordinances, and specific requirements deemed necessary to ensure adequate public safety at special events. B, certain requirements may be waived or it's determined to be in the best interest of the town of Newfields. C, the town may recommend certain restrictions, exceptions, and conditions prior to the application being considered by the select board. D, breach of terms and conditions of any permit issued by the town of Newfields. Select board may be subject to a fine of up to $150. E, failure to obtain a permit form for an event covered under the provisions of RSA 286 or of this policy shall be subject to a fine of up to $150. F, a certificate of insurance showing the carrier and amount of liability insurance will be required, and a permit will not be issued until the COI, the certificate of insurance, is issued. The certificate shall explicitly name the town of Newfields as an additional insured and must state the name and date of the event. G, non-performance or non-completion of said exceptions or conditions or addition of event activities, spectators or participants beyond those specifically reviewed as part of the application review process may be cause for permit revocation at any time before or during the event. Section 7, fees. Each applicant shall pay in advance a fee of $50 for such application review. Community events shall not be charged a permit fee. Special duty service fees. A, the application fee does not include the cost of fire or police protection or any other extra town expense incurred to protect the health and safety of the public, which can reasonably be attributed to the event. All such costs associated with use of active and standby emergency and other services provided by the town of Newfields or by town's emergency services shall be borne by the applicant, promoter, or sponsor. B, in the event that special duty emergency response or protection coverage is provided by a nearby municipality on behalf of the town of Newfields, an invoice will also be submitted by that municipality for the services provided, which shall be paid in a timely manner by the applicant, promoter, or sponsor. C, a history of non-payment or late payment of any application fee and or special duty services is grounds to deny your request for future event. Yeah.
Quick question on section 5C. Is there a next step that needs to be written in here for what happens after applications are distributed to the chief's road agent or health officer? Are there signatures or acknowledgement of receipt or anything procedural that matters?
There is proceed on the special events permit application. There is a sign off point by each of the departments, police chief, fire chief, select board signature, and the building inspector if applicable.
So we don't need to outline that wording
I
here
think
just
we do.
because the
I think
line
we
is
do.
perfect. And you use the word incurred in section 7. A, town expense incurred to protect the health and safety of the public, which can reasonably be attributed to the event. You said incurred, which I like. It says required on the paper. So I like incurred better if nobody objects.
It's fine. She's on it.
Should have put my.
It's on.
Huh.
In that case, I'll open it up to the public. And that exciting response. I will make we'll close the reading and then I'll make a motion to vote favorably on this new ordinance for the town.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes 3-0. And Lieutenant Blaze did do an update on the application permit form that has to be filled out. So there's a few changes from the current one. And I think the biggest factor in there is it reflects $50 per event instead of the old scale that was on there. And one down, only about 20 shelf. All right, we're making progress here. Bill Mazur is tied up in a water department hearing. And he will probably be there till about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. In that case, Forrest, you're up.
Forrest Hayden from the Newfields Conservation Commission. So the Newfields Concom has been working to get a new easement monitor for all the town's easements that we annually monitor for a little over a year now. Our previous easement monitor was Sarah Callahan, and she took a job at UNH. So last year we were able to get 3 of the 7 easements monitored based off her recommendation that the other ones were probably in fine shape to skip. It's too late in the year to acquire services in a timely manner. So this year we've been working with the Rockingham County Conservation District to get all of the easements monitored. They did the important ones that were identified by Sarah in 2024. And so this year we are working to get the rest of them all done. And Sarah had mentioned in several of her previous monitoring reports, going back, the farthest one that I could find was in 2021, for several years, that there was no updated baseline documentation report for the Gilmore / Silverstein easement in town.
And for the record, that's out towards the end of.
I believe it's Hall's Mill. Yes. Yep. And so they had done a bit of a land swap and updated the easement and the exclusionary area within the easement, which updated the deed, and subsequently this report was never updated. In that time, we've also tried to search for the report and haven't been able to locate it. So when we were coming to the select board with our budget last year, we had a line item for a baseline documentation report, and the notes that I was able to find in the minutes referenced the select board saying that we would try to find something, and then the Concom would come to the select board with an estimate for the baseline report to request approval for the funds at that point. So I finally have the estimate in hand, as well as a little write-up about what's included in that baseline report. So I'm coming to the board to request approval of the funds for the baseline monitoring report for the Gilmore Silverstein easement, totaling $1,980.
Okay. In my reading and research on this, just for the record, it's approximately 33 acres out there on the end of Halls Mill Road. And as you referenced, there's no baseline documentation. And then when I was looking at the October 24 Conservation Commission minutes, one of the things that came up in there was Dave Mason referenced that you're gaining probably $300 a year in interest on your accounts. And he said, if we find we need more money for monitoring, we can always tap that resource. That's a $300 number there. And then I do see where you asked for that. And then I did see on page 3 of those minutes, Sarah Callahan talked about recommended we could potentially pass on more Silverstein, Greenway, and Gilmore for next year. Is that still good?
So that was, as I mentioned earlier, the
Yeah,
monitoring.
I just need clarity because I'm not sure.
Yeah. So that was the monitoring for 2024.
It's 2024.
Correct. And those were the ones that Sarah had identified that had no real, issues annually in the past. So she identified the 3 that we should hit and said those ones were okay to skip for 24.
Okay.
Because we were in that time crunch to get everything together kind of last minute.
Okay. So a couple questions. Does it need to be done this year?
The easement needs monitoring this year. This has been recommended to the Concom, like I said, probably at least 3 to 4 or more years by Sarah Callahan, and was never
Reference to Silverstein.
correct, and was never acted upon by the Concom. So it's long overdue to be updated. So I would say that since there's this track of it being recommended for years and no action being taken, it's important that we get it done sooner rather than later. Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you on that, course. One of the things that I'll reference is it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It's unfortunate that it's gone for 3 or 4 years and that hasn't been put forth in the budget, because we bumped the budget of the Conservation Commission this year up to 6,000.
Correct.
And we like, what was it, 4,500 before, I believe?
We incurred some additional expenses.
And totally, because you have additional email addresses, et cetera, et cetera.
Secretary.
Yeah. So one of the things I read in there, and I'm surprised at the discrepancy between the 1980, what they're looking for from the Rockingham County Conservation District, and I read in the notes that baseline cost easement documentation is about $500. What am I missing here?
That was an estimate, and I don't think that there was, at that time, there was no reference point.
So it's just a wag, I guess, is what.
Correct.
In 1980?
No, and then last meeting that we had when we were discussing this in October, we were trying to get numbers together for the budget. We didn't have an estimate for the baseline at that point. We put a number in there and,
Placeholder, so to speak?
correct.
Okay. So as I continue to look into this, you guys have two accounts. You have the current use account, which is approximately $20,000 now. And the use of those funds, monies go into that from current use status changes. And there's no money incurred that goes to the Conservation Commission until which time the Greenway is paid off, and then you'll start receiving funds from that again.
Correct.
That said, you've got $76,000 in the other account that's suitable for land purchase and necessary expenses.
Correct.
And I guess the point that I'm driving to with all this verbosity that I've just laid out,
There's money there.
it's September,
Mhm.
and we have spent a boatload of money, such as on building maintenance, that's almost $20,000. And there's different accounts and different funds. But my 2 cents worth on this, I would see about pulling this $1,980 out of that 76,000.
Perfect.
Because, I mean, if you want to come back, if you want to hold and come back next year, I think the board will be willing to entertain that. I would offer, however, that it's analogous to what the library needs. They need, and bear with me here, they need a new HVAC system. They want the town to do a warrant article, and they've got friends in the libraries with $250,000 sitting there. So if we can not put our hands in the pockets of the taxpayer, I think that would be the driving force for me. And I would encourage the Conservation Commission to pursue in that direction. Is that?
I can take that back and share with the board. Mostly, I just wanted to ensure I was following the procedure and what was
Yes, sir.
recommended previously. So
And I thoroughly appreciate it, but I wanted to have this discussion.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. And in all my time on the Conservation Commission for the last 4 or 5 years, we really haven't touched any of those funds. So I think it would be perfectly reasonable to utilize some of that for a cost such as this. So I can take that back to the Concom.
Okay, Kat?
Agreed.
Jim?
Yeah,
Mark?
if it's acceptable protocol, why not? Why not tap into that?
All right, so don't go anywhere. What is the status now of the Conservation Commission on who's in charge, who's going to be in charge, what's going on with that? You have
Update.
I watched the meeting on the 18th. Yep. And I understand your restrictions as far as conflicts and requirements. Does it look like Allison will be the chair?
I can't say for sure because she hasn't expressly said that. She offered to, what is a defunct term, co-chair, which we've subsequently learned is not allowed under our
Vice chair.
correct. We can have a chair and a vice chair, not co-chairs, which we learned previously. So I'm not sure how that's going to stand for Allison, if she'll volunteer to vice chair or to just chair. She does have some conflicts with work scheduling a lot. She's probably able to make, 75% of the meetings, but usually misses a few annually due to work conflicts or travel, et cetera. Which I believe is why she had volunteered to, as I said, co-chair, but vice.
To fill in the end.
Correct. And so whether she's the chair and somebody else is the vice chair and they kind of flip flop when Allison's not available or she's vice chair, I don't know. That's something that the board has been trying to work through since Chris Griffith left us.
Is Jeff left or Chris left?
Since Chris.
Okay.
Because Jeff volunteered to do it as interim, Jeff Kuchar, and he's recently resigned.
Mhm.
So when Chris left, there was a void because they were co-chairing, which was incorrect. And Jeff kept on as chair in the interim. And I don't think during that time we ever elected a vice chair.
You did not.
Correct.
According to the minutes. Yeah.
So when he resigns, there's another void. And as I had previously stated, when Chris left us, I can't chair or vice chair. So at the last meeting, we brought it up. Allison was on virtually. It was a little bit of a mess. We didn't get the recording set up, didn't get an agenda in. So we discussed it, but no decisions were made.
Let me ask the question of, the word is that Jeff left like 2 weeks earlier than the 18th. Is that ballpark what you've heard? Because all of a sudden I wasn't cognizant of it until I watched the meeting on the 18th, or not, correction, until I watched the meeting on the 19th that was recorded in archive and saw that he had left.
Yeah, I believe it was about 2 weeks before that meeting. Yeah, roughly speaking. I don't have the exact date.
And we've talked about one of the things that I addressed in that email I referenced earlier to the board members as far as introducing yourself and speaking to the microphone, was that when there's a resignation in the future from any of the boards, that resignation not only go to the chair of the board, but it also goes to the select board, so that we're cognizant of it.
Correct.
Because we're scrambling now. Which brings me to the next issue, and you happen to be standing in the circle of death. Okay.
Yeah.
No. On August 4th, we received a letter from the Attorney General, Department of Justice, Chair of the Trust Division. And this deals with the Vernon Family Farm walkthrough.
Mhm.
And if you go through that, have you read this document?
I read portions of it.
Okay, if you go through it, let's cut to the quick here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions that were raised on page 8 by the Charitable Trust Division. And it goes on through, and then it talks about the CTU respectfully requests that within 60 days of this notice, which will makes it 3 October of this year, the town provide charitable trust unit in writing all steps taken to date or intended to be conducted, considering the charitable trust unit's review to reach the conclusion that the activity of parking cars is allowed activity, as well as how monitoring to a date established there has been no significant impact to the soil. So bottom line is the CTU has told the town and directly pointed it at the Conservation Commission that this needs to be a hearing, and that the questions that are raised on page 8 need to be addressed in a public forum. Now, if we roll over to what town council said, public meeting, it was Director Dempsey's opinion, and I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Durbin about this because there's a lot of opinion in here, and I would like a little more solidity and within the four corners of a document instead of just an opinion on this. These issues be addressed in a public meeting for determining whether the current use of the easement for parking is permitted under the terms of the easement. She was talking about a public hearing for late September discuss it, and quote, Durbin says, I recommended Vernon Family Farming and all the parties get together and we have this meeting. So I guess throwing another brick in your pack, have you guys talked about this?
No, that came up, I believe, after the last meeting when that
We
came
received
out.
it on the 19th. Yep.
Correct.
That was Durbin's letter. We received the one from the Attorney General's on the, I saw Jeff Kuchar downstairs on the 5th, and I told him this had been received and he should be receiving a copy of it. So now, since Jeff has left, that left that void there for 2 weeks where he didn't pass the word about this, is what I'm thinking transpired.
Correct. And he was also on the site visit, I believe, on that walk.
Was. So we're kind
I
of,
was unaware of that entirely.
Yeah.
I was unaware of the site walk as well as, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, when I read that, I was,
caught off guard.
yes.
Is that tactful enough? Yeah. Well, and then I'll open it to the committee here in just a second, subboard here in just a second. I have real concerns about addressing this in the most timely manner and doing a thorough four corner, 360-degree review on this and making sure this happens, because we certainly don't want to fall short on meeting the deadlines and the requirements and what is our obligation to make sure this is done properly, especially when we consider all the years that we have dealt and all the costs that we've incurred dealing with Vernon Family Farm issues. So I would ask you And I will follow up with an email to the Conservation Commission.
Please.
To build a fire under this and make this happen yesterday. And unfortunately, you're standing in the circle of death. So
Yeah. I believe Allison has been in contact with Derek about it, but I'm not positive.
okay.
Mm,
And we need to be, as a board, we need to be cognizant of what's transpiring between the parties.
Yeah.
We need to be CC'd. So
I'll pass that along.
thank you, sir. Yeah.
Would it be helpful to hear back from Allison?
Yeah,
Like a
we probably,
request
yeah.
to call.
And what I will do is I will follow up with an email to the
Yeah.
board and to Allison, just addressing these issues. Mark?
I will, and during, I don't know if we need to have a separate meeting before the next Concom. Sounds like that would be appropriate. So that this just gets done. So I would suggest that, some kind of meeting within the next week or two to make sure we get this at least rolling.
I think I pushed it next week instead, time being of the essence.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll share that with the board. I know Allison, I forget, I believe was on travel and returning September 6th jumps to my mind, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. So I believe that next week could be an option. I will be out of town for work all next week, so I will be unable to attend if there is a special meeting. But yeah, it certainly could get done. And I'll follow up with the board and make them aware that they should review this recording once it's complete to get up to date on things.
And ensure that we are CC'd on correspondence and discussion so that select board's in the loop on this.
Would you like for all the select board members to be on all correspondence? Historically, most of it's gone to just Mark as our select board representative.
I think due to the high visibility of this, Attorney General's office, I think it would be appropriate that we're all cognizant of what's transpiring on this.
Perfect.
Anything from the floor? Thank you, sir. I appreciate your forbearance for the additional questions.
Thank you, Obi.
All right. Mr. Kessler. Talk to me, Goose.
Mike Kessler, Celebration Committee Chair. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk about tonight. I don't know if the word got out to everybody. I know we talked about Memorial Day, we talked about senior luncheon, but I have taken over as Celebration Chair. So I just want to go on the record and state that, any Celebration Committee issues should flow through me. Okay, my number and email address and everything's on record at Town Hall. I know we had some questions recently about the Fall Festival. Thanks to Chief and Lieutenant Blaze, we kind of got that back on track now. But we've had a few things happen this year with people wanting to help and a lot of good intentions. And I think, I just want to wrangle those good intentions in a little more. So the other thing I want to put out tonight is on October 18th, here at Town Hall, 10 a.m. to noon, we'll have a celebration committee meeting, but it's also going to be a recruitment. So I want to make sure it gets out to everybody, and we'll have Sue put out an email to the town, and the celebration website or the Facebook page will be updated to reflect that we are going to have that meeting here. We are going to cover all of the events that we have throughout the year. So Memorial Day, Fall Festival, Senior Luncheon, and holiday celebration will all be covered during that meeting. Looking for volunteers for all of that. We've had a lot of the same people for the last few years kind of helping out. We're hoping to get some of the newer people in town some of the younger people in town, to come out and help out with these events to really help us put them on in a way that are gonna speak to the next generation of kids coming up. Definitely open to new ideas on how we do some of these things. I mean, we, in the last 2 years, we actually changed the entire route of the Memorial Day because Ray Buxton had that great idea. So again, we're just looking for, people to come out, volunteer, and just a reminder that, volunteering is not a full-time job. 10 or 15 minutes on a phone is going to help out tremendously. So just want to remind everybody of that. And if anybody's got any questions on celebration, I'm happy to take them right now.
Are you going to address the fall festival later?
I think Mike can already answer that.
Okay. Are you taking it, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us a skinny on the fall festival.
So basically between Chief and Lieutenant Blaze, they've gone out. We've got the food truck, we've got the band, we've got the permits, and I don't know, what do we have left on the coordination?
Everybody else, the dunk tank. There's still a few other people we have to reach out to this week. This has really been hit heavy last week for keep up with the holiday and everything. So,
But the bottom line is here, it's locked down, it's good to go, everything's squared away.
Yeah, September 20th, 5 to 8. 5 to 8.
Will a flyer be going up on the page or?
So Chief's going to be putting together a flyer. Once we have that, we'll post it on Celebration page, all the Facebook pages. And that's the other thing too, the Celebration page. If you haven't joined it yet, please join the Celebration page. There's a lot of good information we put on there. I try to use that as our main conduit of information going out to everybody. And if you put a message on there specifically for me, I'll get right back to you. So, yep.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, if we can ask Sue to, or Keisha to maybe send out a little notice and say, hey, let's reach out to Mr. Kessler about, volunteering for future events. We could do something like that to just
I told Sue I'd give her a full write-up to.
along.
Anything else for us, Mike?
Nope, just having some requests for penalties. That's it.
Is it in the queue?
No, okay, good to keep sharing. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Kat has kindly offered to delay her legislative meeting wrap up because of the size of the agenda and the fact that as we move forward and the shakes out what's transpiring in Concord, we could have a little more efficacy in finding out what exactly is going
Sure.
on.
I just want to make that efficient and pointed because I think the implications for the town are much bigger than a wrap up is going to cover, especially where it comes to potential changes in language in our ordinances, which is actions town members are going to have to get educated about and do into our next year.
All right. Any observations on that? Mark, you good?
Okay.
All right. We have a letter from CELT dated 22 August. There was a select board for the conservation easement held by the town of Newfields on the Greenway. CELT is notifying the town of their intent to undertake forest and wildlife habitat management on the property. 15-day notice they're meeting it. They've taken care of notifying all the abutters. And they have a licensed forest. They're taking it, so there can be expected to see that transpiring on the Greenway. Any questions on that?
No.
All right. Next item on the agenda, under correspondence and the discussion, as I referenced earlier when I was talking to Forrest in regards to the library and their HVAC needs for replacement, repair and replacement, or vice versa, or whatever. And talking to Wynn, he was under the mindset that they wouldn't be amenable to that. I would like, I propose that we as a board extend an invitation both to the Board of Trustees for the library and also to the Friends of the Library to come in and meet with the select board so that we can discuss this and see if we can reach an amenable conclusion to this assessment of physical repair of the plant facility. Did you get your keys? Gotcha. See you, Mike. See you. All right, I'm gonna hold off on 6. Moving down. So we have transfer of a cemetery deed, and all this deed is being remitted back to the town. The people that purchased it no longer have an interest in the plot, so it's going back to the town, and what we have to do is acknowledge it. And so, I would say we're considered acknowledged. Things to do with that.
Yes.
The next thing we have is a town hall rental, and this is for Deer Trees Homeowner Association. Justin Deerka has filled out the application here. Date of function is 19 November. It will be from 7 a.m. until 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. And approximately 45 peeps will show up there, and no alcohol will be involved. Any homeowner association, any issues? I'll make a motion to accept this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I said right there, Keisha, please. That way we'll not get caught and then that's stacks of paper. Next item on the agenda is cemetery deeds for lot 167A and B and lot 168A and B. These are sales of the plot. And I'll let you read the specifics as to who and the amount of money put forward. It's pretty standard business procedure. Do we have any comments from the board?
None.
No, Mark, I'll make a motion to accept it, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Need to be taken. Yep.
Correct. First, yeah.
Yep, sure.
So, see.
All right, next item on the agenda, let's bang through the prior meeting minutes. Good on the 5th. Because we postponed it from the last meeting. And then we have the 19th. Because of in that case, I will make a motion to accept the minutes from 5 August 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Someone second that?
You didn't, I'm sorry, I thought somebody did.
Good, I did.
We do have an abatement to deal with, town of Newfields, to the collector of taxes, Sue McKinnon, By vote of the select board, there's a property that was erroneously billed for $64.86. And it is a program that we remove that obligation from that landowner. So it was administrative error that caused it. So I make a motion that we accept this abatement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. That's an unidentified.
Right. I'm you. That makes you,
Oh, yeah. You sign it there.
in case you didn't know.
You sign.
Set. We have notice of intent to cut, and this will be taking place in Mill Road and almost Mill Road. Standard format allowing to get the stumpage cut and we'll be able to figure out what the taxation is. Yep. Everything's in there and good to go. Any questions or issues on it? I'll make a motion. We sign off on this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On Keisha, please. Next item, I want to jump on is the MS1 Newfields Summary Inventory Evaluation. And this is required for the state that the DRA, Department of Revenue Administration, reports documenting that. And if you go through it, it shows funds, exceptions, utilities, timber, and it breaks down all financial aspects of the community. And if everybody, I'll make a motion that we accept this and sign off.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, if we're all set, I'm going to jump down to number 7, which references Bill Meserve not being able to be. We put out the bid for the rain gardens and the accessory work that went with that. The bids closed. We received 2 bids. They are so far beyond the scope of what we have budgeted that they're just not viable. And the thought process was that what we will do was notify people that bid that those are beyond the means of the town. My conversations with Bill Meserve today is that we would reopen bid for 2 weeks, have it close on the 22nd so we can deal with it on the 23rd. And almost set it up because one of the big things that Bill referenced in that, and I wish he'd have been here to talk about, is because we can bump up our nitrogen recovery and our chemical recovery space, et cetera, going down to the river. Because we'll set up like a buffet or an a la carte type contract instead of having this massive contract that was stunning at the amount of money that came into. And I think that's the most prudent way to go. And somebody asked me, well, does that mean we're going to have to repost it, pay for it in the paper? And my answer is yes. But what it costs to post this again online and in the newspaper will result in great savings compared if we try to figure out a way to work with this proposals that we received. So anything from the board?
And there's a deadline to be keeping in mind that there's actual
Which
grant
is
money that will be lost to us if we don't take action. So it is, right, it's expensive to let the deadline be missed.
Mark?
Yeah, and the deadline is, what's the deadline?
Well, it's the end of the month.
Yeah, the end of
Sure.
September.
Okay.
Michael?
One of the two companies that did.
Rye Beach is one of them. And let me find the other one here.
Earth and Stone.
Earth and Stone out of Hampton. So what we'll do is we'll repost this for 2 weeks, rewrite the RFQ, and then move forward with that, with making it very clear that we have a drop dead date that we have to meet to not lose state and some federal funding. We've made great progress getting to the point we're at now. Along those lines, for the rain garden, just for an update for the community, we are having additional work done on the south and southeast corner of the property out here. There'll be additional trees coming down and some bushes coming out. That old fence will be getting pulled, that old chain link fence that surrounds the property on that end. And at which time we'll be able to move ahead with the rain garden. That's also going to entail liaison with the garden club, because they've got a whole native species, whatever that entails, that they're going to plant into the rain garden. On those lines, I'm going to jump ahead while we're talking about spending money. We got the all the stonework done on the building, the masonry work done. And when Mr. Morissette and his son were up there, they found the whole fascia on the east side of the building was rotten from one end to the other, including giant nests that were up inside the tails of the eaves there. I called Munch Merrick, and he was able to work the town in between jobs. He postponed another job for 2 or 3 days, and they completely replaced the fascia on that side of the building. And they used AZEK so that it won't rot again in the future. And we got it for a very good price at $3,350. And we're now down to $1,301 left in our warrant article maintenance fund between the stonework, the tuck pointing, and that repair. So we've got the structure fixed. And again, I will offer that Gary Morissette, who's been doing masonry for a long time, said this building is in incredible shape for being almost 97 years old. So that's the update on that. Any questions, concerns on that? I will get together with Keisha and Bill Meserve, and we will get that new RFQ out with all due haste. All right. So one of the things we've got to deal with is the fact that we've already talked. They got good knowledge from Forrest regards to the National Conservation Commission. We received from Caleb Fields probably 2.5 weeks ago, about the 19th or the 20th, his CV, his resume for his interest. And I'll get to you in, I haven't forgotten. Okay. Caleb's been in town since 2013. He has worked to get on the board before, but there were reasons he was unable to do so. Did you guys receive a copy of his CV? You did not. Did you put it in there, Keisha?
The attachments. Okay.
You got it in your pile there somewhere.
The email is interesting.
Yes. Here, I think. Writing expressions intent, strong background in wildlife and forest habitats, well suited, he believes. Avid hunter, fisherman, and outdoorsman. Travels the U.S. hiking, fishing, and hunting. Vice president of the area's NWTF. What's that? You know, Forrest?
National Wildlife.
National Wild Turkey Federation.
Likely, I gained it. That's good. That worked. Extensive experience in wildlife management, property protection, habitat. They established a 4-acre wildlife field that had been a decimated clear cut. And in his building experience, he follows it. Strong passion for outdoors and wildlife. And again, he attempted to get on the board previously. Then this afternoon, Tom, you sent an email. Was it an email? Sentence that you had interest in getting onto the board. So that's what we've got for 2 applicants. In regards to the fact that we are facing this deadline with the Attorney General's office, I think it's incumbent upon us to fill this position immediately. And especially considered all the variables going on with the Conservation Commission. There's not confusion, but there's lack of clarity on who the chair is going to be, who the chair isn't going to be. And I think, add that together, I think we should move forward post haste on this. I will make a motion that Caleb Fields be appointed to the Conservation Commission.
I'm comfortable seconding that. I just have one comment after, not unique to Caleb.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did he state that he was interested as well? Was
He
that?
did this afternoon. That's what I referenced. He sent us like a couple sentence statement that he was interested. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Tom?
Say this,
Nice and clear.
it confuses me a little bit, yeah. I think it was just a few months ago that I heard that the treasurer might be thinking of stepping aside. And then that happened, and then last meeting, Chris McDade, great choice, has the spot. But certainly no publicity on that on the website or any place else that I'm aware of. And then this Jeff, I kind of was where he stepped aside, doesn't necessarily imply that the seat's going to be filled within a couple of weeks or a few weeks. So it seems like a lot of activities taking place with both seats very quickly without publication of an open slot or anything like that. And no, I have no issues with any of the choices or anything like that. But, you know, if it's like first come, first served, then I guess I'm in for the next one or.
Well, the only reason I'd offered, not so much first come, first serve, but I'd reference that Caleb has been, wanted to seek get a seat on the board previously.
Yeah.
And it's opened up for him. So he's voiced an interest in the board for a while. And then an opening has made itself available. And I would wager that with all the discombobulation going on in the Conservation Commission, there will probably, I wouldn't be surprised to see other openings in the near future. So, and I don't know that.
Possibly, yeah, certainly not.
I mean, one of my concerns is with what we're facing now with the Attorney General's office and the issue and some of the other issues, such as that, not the reference, the items you referenced not being publicized and a lack of clarity of what transpires. I would like to see a greater, stronger leadership from the Conservation Commission come forward. And I think this is an opportunity to pull it forward. And I would strongly encourage you to maintain your interest in getting on the
I
board.
think there are opportunities, right?
And I'm not saying there's going to be, but if there are, because this board has so much potential, but I haven't seen that come to fruition over the past couple of years. And I would really like to see this board become a viable, contributing, strongly involved with a strong level of public cognizance of what they're doing as we move forward.
Yeah, understood. So, and just the timeline. So this morning, actually, Sue said it was still open.
Yes.
So I went and proceeded with the email. And I was not asked to put a CV or anything like that. I have a short bio, but that was not part of what she meant.
And see, that's one of the protocol issues with that I see that's intrinsic to the board as it exists. I'm not dumping on you guys, folks. Please don't take it that way.
I'm listening.
Okay. That there needs to be a clear, concise, established protocol so that it's wide open, so that everybody knows how things are done. And I think we have the opportunity to move forward in this direction.
And
Okay.
is there room for an alternate as well?
It's 5 or a minimum of 5, maximum of 7, I believe, is what's under the.
Plus alternates, I believe.
I don't think there's an alternate because I was looking at the,
Structure.
I have,
May not be. I could be correct.
yeah, the founding documents, and there wasn't a reference in the document. Hang on a second, 'cause I got it right here.
Alternates typically are for planning or zoning is statutorily far more regulated than a conservation commission. So there may be alternates, but typically there's not for those.
Here's the document, December 31st, 1992. I have correction, that's not less than 3 nor more than 7 members. Chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and a treasurer. There's no reference in this document as to.
And so what number are they at presently?
Well, if
One
we
opening?
bring Caleb on, that'll bring it up to 7. Correct.
Well, I will participate in the meetings as I run
Certainly.
and keep interest. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And please, keep your interest peaked. In the case we have a second, And
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. In that case, we'll push Caleb Fields onto the Conservation Commission.
And I just wanted to say it's this first appointment to a board or commission that I've been here. And I want to remind everyone to be vigilant if you're a business owner in town sitting on a board, to be especially attentive to potential conflicts of interest and recuse yourself from voting if something could be. And I think that is something that the zoning board and the planning board faces as well for future, There's a lot of self-employed and business owners sitting on boards in town, so we just need to be mindful of potential conflicts of interest.
Moving right along. So at the last board meeting, we discussed the fact that Vernon Family Farm, item 9 in the notice of decision from December of 22 had failed to comply with item 9 in regards to the vegetative buffer that's required to be installed during their property, 319 Piscataqua Road. It's been 2 years and 8 months
Yep.
since that decision was passed. No action has visible or has been taken either from Google Earth when you look at the property or on the drive-by on the property. To facilitate this, I drafted a letter from the board, and I'll ask you to please take a look at it so we can see whether we find it's appropriate. The letter is addressed not only to the Vernons, but also to the planning board, because one of the requirements of the item 9 was that the planning board sign off on the vegetative buffer between the two properties. And I think it needs to go back to the planning board to address this. A couple of the points are that when the decision was made in December of 22, all parties, as was just reiterated by the court, had an opportunity to appeal or challenge the decision of the board within 30 days. As the voters found out, they just didn't have standing. In regards to the Vernons accepting this document from December of 22, there was no challenge in any way, shape, or form by the Vernons to item 9 of the terms and conditions. The planning board has a history of requiring buffers between properties, such as between the post office and the veterinary clinic right next to them, as well as on Winkler Way. So as it appears, there is no vegetative buffer between the properties as required by 9. It raises the following questions to the Vernon Family Farm. As it appears, there's no vegetative buffer. Is there a reason for this lack of compliance? As it appears, there's no vegetative buffer. What does the Vernon Family Farm plan so as to bring the farm into compliance? And what is or will be the timeline for achieving compliance? In regards to the planning board, it appears there's no vegetative buffer. Does the planning board consider this a material breach of the terms and conditions of the notice of decision? If so, what are the ramifications of this breach? And as it appears there's no vegetative buffer, will the planning board revisit the buffer issue as to requiring larger plantings so as to compensate for the loss of almost 3 years of buffer growth?
A question on
Yes.
the timeline for conditions on conditional site plan decisions. Are they usually embedded in the decision? Is there a set time period, or is it unique to each circumstance?
Michael, would you like to address this? With your long planning board.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, especially if we're looking at.
no, not a problem. So, there actually is statutory language, in the RSAs that, if applicants have failed to conform to any conditions of approval within a reasonable time, or if no such time is specified within time, time period specified within state statute. Exactly how this falls under which statute, I'm unclear of. But it's usually they have a, reasonable test, or it's specified in the state statutes. So there is some language that tries to allow towns to address this in some manner if people just don't comply. They basically sit on their hands. Okay.
32 months seems like a long time to me to not have made an effort on this. Jack?
Yeah, no, as I'm reading the language, on some level, it seems a little bit oversimplified in that a decision in December of 22, I'm not sure about plantings, December to spring in general, and that there would be 2 years and 8 months of growth if they had planted it on the date.
Well, nobody would expect to plant in December.
Well, that's what, yeah.
But
So I
a
just,
good faith effort, I don't think we've seen.
sure, I'm just looking at the language in the actual letter and feeling like it implies that the expectation is unmet for 2 years and 8 months of growth. Might be a little over the top for a decision that came out in December of 2022. So maybe that degree of language at the last part. As it appears, but the planning visit issue require larger plantings to compensate for the passing of time, perhaps. But I just feel like the language is a little bit, it implies something different than.
And that's a point well taken. Mark?
Why is this being brought up now?
Well, if you, as to the introduction of the part, as a result of ongoing discussions and legal matters currently underway, it's appropriate to view the notice of decision and ensure compliance. One of the things we're dealing with is conservation easement and the Attorney General's office. Also, the fact that there is a lawsuit which we just escaped because we've been doing our due diligence. And I would offer this as part of our due diligence.
I don't think this is pending a lawsuit, but I think a letter that simply reminds them that this needs to be done now. Now, I did reach out to the Vernons and ask them about this, just as a neighbor, instead of giving them a warning letter that's going to be this kind of legalese. This is a breach of your, breach of this planning, whatever, that you're out of compliance and all of that. This is a neighbor of ours. And to send this out, I think, is a little over the top. So I think when I did reach out to the Vernons, they said, we did delay because we have a new neighbor that's there, a new owner. And we wanted to reach out to them to make sure they were okay with putting up a barrier like that. And so they are going to be on this, but I don't think I'm going to be signing this kind of a warning with content in here that's going to say, if you don't do this right away, you're in breach of contract, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think, first of all, this new neighbor just moved in the house and the property just changed hands in the past couple of weeks. They've had over since December of 22 to make arrangements with the prior neighbor, and they did absolutely nothing in discussions with the prior neighbor.
Yeah, so they did just have a new neighbor, and that they said that I just talked to them about this. And they said, we have a new neighbor. We want to discuss that with them.
Well, that's fine. The point that I'm making that I think you're missing is they had 2 years until the new neighbor moved in this month to deal with this matter, and there was no efforts or any actions put forth by the Vernons to deal with this issue and this requirement by the planning board under the terms and conditions. I have no issue with changing item 3 in the addressing to the planning board. But I think it's incumbent upon us as the enforcement aspect of the government, of the town government, to ensure that this is being complied with. There have been many other projects that have come forth that have not fallen within the auspices and the four corners of the document from the planning board. And the planning board requirements for seeing take priority over
I
the other
just
aspects.
have a hard time signing off on something that has this kind of threatening language. We can talk to them. We can talk to them. I guarantee you those bushes will be in quickly. I'm not signing off on a document that holds them in some kind of contempt that because they didn't put some bushes up. This is silly.
Well, I will offer to you, it's not silly. It's the terms and conditions of what was required for them.
That's my opinion.
That's fine, and I respect your opinion. I just wholeheartedly disagree with
So,
it. When you're granted authority by the town and receive an approval or something, you have to meet the terms and conditions of so. There's no threatening here. It's just asking questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious about the first question in terms of asking for a reason of why. Only in that, is there a reason that would be acceptable, or is that a moot point, or is it a gracious gesture? Only because.
I think the answer to that I would offer is Okay, do you have a reason you've been unable to comply?
Okay.
If so, is it logical? Does it make sense?
Sure.
Can we move forward?
Yeah.
Now, I will offer to you, Mark, when you say we can talk to them about neighbors, the past 2.5, 3 years are replete with attempts to move forward with the rules and the regulations of town and ordinance. And an inability or an unwillingness to comply with those rules and regulations. I mean, we can talk about signage, we can talk about numerous other, we can talk about noise compliance.
I would send them a letter as a reminder so that you have it on file that this needs to be completed and that they would answer it. But just the language there is a little, using terms like breach, and that is without them coming in to discuss why. Not going to sign it.
Okay.
There was I'm curious if you're getting at a bigger point around communicating with people who have actions going on in the town and the town boards with approvals and the way that we're approaching people, that it feels collaborative rather than assertive. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That's right.
If there's a more collaborative way to communicate, if that's something that we want to be doing as a whole, as a board, with all of the people, because we had an issue with Mr. Ward, who was going to get a letter, then he wasn't going to get a letter. There's other situations in which we have the option to call people up to the table to say, hey, what's your plan? This isn't how it was supposed to go. And how can we get it back on track? Something that maybe sounds less formal. Sounds like what you're after.
Right.
I wouldn't disagree with that, except for the fact that we've spent probably $50,000 to $60,000 in attorney's fees working to get compliance with the town ordinance. And if you want to look at all the monies that we have spent seeking compliance with the sign ordinance in the town on a very simple issue with about 8 or 9 representations by the Vernon Family Farm that they would comply with all town sign ordinances. And we dealt with that for 3 years. Minimal else since 14. We dealt with that since 14. There's been other issues. The noise has been going on since they started that. We finally got to the point where we had to incur the expense of getting noise monitoring.
Right.
And this isn't from a lack of trying. I mean, the efforts have been, and as was the case when Mr. Gerdak came in, that he said he was just concerned about dealing with the select board because they put you in the crosshairs. It all boils down to, these are the town ordinances. These are the requirements. You need to comply with them. And I would offer to you that there's been foot dragging and probably whatever reason. I mean, if we can clear cut all the way along past Wiscasset Road, which is fine. I mean, you can do, it's your property, do what you want. But if you can do that, then it seems to me it would behoove you, for no other reason than a demonstration of good faith to show I'm going to get this in a timely manner, which has not happened. We've had two and a half full growing seasons and nothing's been done. It's analogous to when we had to deal with the fencing in the right of way and the pigs being in the ditch. That's just, these are just example after example after example.
And I understand that. There are valid points on both sides. The idea is, when you mentioned something about the sign, that it took 2.5 years. I walked over there and talked to them. They took the sign down in 20 minutes.
And then why did we deal with this since 2014 when it started being illegal?
Because this is the, I mean, I could read you an Aesop's fable about the force and, the difference between forcing someone's hand and getting somebody to actually comply in a favorable way by just giving a little heat.
Let's break it down to brass tacks. When you're doing business with the community and you set up and you have an agreement that is, you have gone through the entire process, the town worked with you, they brought in the Conservation Commission, the Select Board, the Zoning Board, the Planning Board, the Town Planner, and Council to arrive at this destination, which is the notice of the decision of December 22. They arrived at that point, and it was done in good faith by those boards and the community. And such as an example, backing up right back to the sign issue in 2014, both by Council, Amy Mantilli, and the Burnhams, they represented they would comply with all sign-offs. They would take the signs down, and then within 2-3 weeks, those signs would be back up again or totally in compliance. We would send letters engaging Council incurring more expense for the town, which is coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. And said this way, this is not engaging Derek. This is addressing the points that are referenced. I have no issue making the changes you would like in referencing section, item 3 as to the growing seasons versus 2 years and 8 months. Yeah, I think that's a prudent call there. But at a certain point you go, when, after 2.5 years, are you going to meet your obligations and responsibilities?
Well, talk to them, but they're not signing that letter today.
Okay, that's fine, Mark.
So we,
Give me a few days, talk to them. And if you want to send out a letter saying, based on our meeting on 2nd of September, we've requested that you meet your obligation to put the plantings in between you and said neighbor.
And
fair enough.
also has to meet the approval of the planning board. That's one of the
that's been,
requirements.
Well,
make the decision.
that has to be specified on what
Well,
exactly
it's
they
been a
need to do.
decision, because if they'd done it already, that would have been done.
Okay.
They wouldn't, I don't imagine the decision said they have to return to the planning board before the planting, because if they had planted it already, we wouldn't be here. And so it sounds like we're moving in a good direction, thinking about how to be more collaborative with people and thoughtful about how we communicate so that we can bring people together to get things done faster and not get caught up in the
Exactly.
legalese that invites further legal trouble in the future. And so I
Honestly,
want to put a pin in being thoughtful about the town not being vulnerable to a lawsuit.
whether it was the Vernons or anyone else, I mean, the only conversation I have with them is when I go in there and buy eggs. I mean, this is not anything other than how we should be dealing with our neighbors in a,
It needs to be a written letter, which
which is fair enough.
letters document time and place and what the request is. The potential for it to be less formal exists. I'm agreeable to there being a letter that says, essentially, you're in compliance, with your plan to be in compliance, and if
Reminding them.
reason, right, that's worthy, right? I don't think that that's actually out of line for a select board to do. I do think it's important to be thoughtful about the tone that it's inviting so that we continue to appear collaborative and supportive of businesses in this town, needing to do things and needing to comply with their site plan. I just also want to be thoughtful about what comes next after this. Is there another continued list of next month, it's going to be one other thing, and next month, one other thing? Or if that's the case, should it all be in one letter and we look at that? So it's not piecemeal chipping away of one item after another.
I would offer that if you talk to 95% of the businesses in this town, they will tell you they do not have an issue dealing with the town on establishing and moving a business forward. When you have the track record that is developed on every time we have attempted to move forward and reach a mutual agreement, there was also obstacles thrown up. There's attorneys letters being thrown in our direction, which required us to expend funds previously. If it was somebody who, one of the local businesses who, oh, I didn't know we can do that. Can we, they'll come in and talk about it. They're amenable to talking about it and amenable to resolving the issue. I would say that with any other business, we're probably not going to have this problem, but there is a track record that has developed and we're having to deal with continuously since the get-go, that says, no, we're not just buddies sitting here. We need to assert the authority of the town and say, you need to get this squared away. Now, Michael, what are the opportunity? What is the scope of the planning board's authority in regards to an issue such as this?
And I could add how they're handling Great Bay as well, because that's a current issue.
So, there's no hard and fast rule here. But there are statutes. I think it's in 676, RSA 676, that allows the planning board to review the decisions on a site plan or, you know, in this case, the notice of decision, and determine whether they have fulfilled the obligations under the notice. It requires a public hearing and I mean, there's a whole process outlined for it. Notice to abutters like anything else. You know, it's fairly broad. But short, I think, of anybody bringing formal requests to the planning board, my guess is the planning board's not gonna proactively do that unless there's some formal request made to the board. You know, the planning board, once they approve a site plan, their assumption is typically you're gonna follow what you agreed to. And the planning board typically doesn't, you know, run around peeking over fences to make sure for enforcement, much like you guys don't. I mean, you know, the history of the select board has been one of responding to somebody who's bringing an issue as opposed to going and finding an issue, right? So the planning board does have some authority under their state statutes to review this, but, you know, like I said, it's a process and probably would require somebody raising with the planning.
Would you observe that 99.5% of the time people comply with the notice of decision and time is relative?
The site plan reviews and the site plan acceptance. I mean, I'll use an example, you know, Muddy River. There was a lot of issues with Muddy River reconverting that property. You know, they wanted parking on New Road. We said, no, you're not going to do that. We ran into issues in enforcement, but they worked with the town to basically try to resolve this. They opened up the lot to the right of the building. With especially with commercial businesses, there's a variety of issues that come up down on Winkler Way. You know, you mentioned the buffer zone. You know, we made that a requirement for the Winkler Way new development to put up the buffer, even though, you know, they said, well, there's trees that are coming down. We said, well, you have to put up a buffer there. So yes, I would say it is my experience that most applicants that come before the planning board want to work with the planning board to come up with solutions that comply under the town ordinances. That's just the way the process should work.
And this process with Great Bay and the lighting, it was Glenn Greenwood's recommendation that the planning board send a letter to say, it appears you are out of compliance. And we're requesting that you rectify that. Great Bay Mobile reviewed the minutes and sent a letter back saying, we disagree. We think we are in compliance based on the site plan review that was accepted. Came back to the planning board looks at it again and says, no, we disagree. And so one last attempt, now a second letter going to Great Bay Mobile to say the planning board has looked at the minutes, looked at your response and decided we disagree. And we're asking you to rectify it. The third step is the select board is going to step in. We're going to have this conversation about Great Bay Mobile, and we're going to draft a letter that looks more legalese like this one, not as friendly as what Glenn has drafted up. And we're going to ask them to remove the lights, to be in compliance. But the process was first, hey, it looks like you didn't do what we approved you to do. Please rectify that. Oh, we see your response. Hey, we actually disagree with your response. And then the enforcement part is us. And so I feel like we're weirdly backwards in this, just with the legalese language of this letter. It implies we're further in a process than maybe we are. And
Be a paper trail.
the tone of the letter to me as a business owner, I would be like, holy shit, I have to call my lawyer, as opposed to, oh, I need to call them up and let them know my plan, or send them an email or a letter saying, we received it, we have a plan to move forward. We couldn't because we discovered a gigantic boulder under the ground or whatever the issue was. So I guess that's more listening to Mike. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That, you know, it is their state statutes to support the planning board taking some action, but I've seen our planning board take less formal action in an attempt to resolve a non-compliance issue that's been ongoing for months now. And we are driving by it, looking at exactly what we don't want to be looking at. We are not using Google Earth to look at Great Bay Mobile and say, you have neon lights, backlighting. In a way, right? Google Earth is sort of peeking over the fence. And so in the absence of an actual complaint, my concern is the letter's legalese sort of approach seems inviting of conflict or inviting of consternation. And that might be more than is necessary to achieve what we want to achieve. Right? That's all I want to say about it. It's just my thoughts on that.
Thank you.
So what's the?
Give me a day or two. And I'll reach back out, say, please follow up with a letter. And at least that is our,
Do we need to on record send them something in writing that we are making this request? And that's a question
I think that's,
for the board. Because
that's okay to send out a letter, but not in that tone, as you said. That's the idea. That's all. That's fair enough. If you got a letter in the mail like one of these, I'm not saying that whether you deserved it or not, you'd dig your heels in. You'd be like, what the?
I would wait. That if I had failed to comply with terms and conditions that I had agreed to, and that were I had basically shaken hands on, if I had failed to meet my obligations and responsibility, I would expect the town to go, hey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to do this. You haven't done it.
Right.
You basically gave your word that you would do this when you accepted, and you had council argue for it and worked our way through the process. And now you're basically thumbing the town and going, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it at my
I
convenience.
think there's a difference of opinion on how we just go about it. So I think meeting in the middle and not meeting in the middle, like I said, let me talk with them. Let's send out a follow-up letter. This is even in business. I mean, you talk to someone who's not listening to you, you bring them in to talk, you say, listen, this needs to happen. And then you follow up with an email to say, based on what we talked about.
I want to be careful not to make any assumptions, speaking on behalf of the Vernons or whether they're listening or not listening, right? Because I don't want to characterize their motives, intentions, and abilities.
Exactly.
Let them speak for themselves. But I do think redrafting the letter to be in a more collaborative tone would be super to do in the meantime while you make a phone call, because I feel like if we have to document the concern, the amount of time we've spent discussing it warrants that we write it down, and then we have that for our record.
Yeah.
And then we'll have their response and we'll move forward.
Fantastic.
What do you think, Colby?
All right, well, then what we'll do is we'll redraft a letter saying, hey, this needs to be done.
Mhm.
We hope you will, no, we won't hope, we're asking you to do this post haste. Because it falls within what you agreed to do.
Sure.
And it needs to be done in a timely manner.
Sure. And then from there, would we need the planning board to do anything else?
I think
Or
we
do we
should.
just want to put them on notice that this is happening?
I think they should be CC'd in that letter. Just as in this one, we can change the language on it, move forward. But the fact is that this is a responsibility and an obligation and a commitment that they made, which they failed to do since December of 22, and now we're in September of 2025.
Not to belabor the point here, but from a practical standpoint as well. Instead of having this letter go out and then their lawyer is put on task, and then that letter goes back to Mr. Durbin, and then that incurs costs with us. I mean, it's just common sense.
Well, what common sense would be
That they
meeting your obligations and your responsibilities and doing what you gave your word that you would do. So instead of procrastinating, dragging your feet or ignoring the issue until it comes up before the board.
Yeah. Well, let's not hash out the past. Let's move forward and let's get it done. We'll get it done.
You can't ignore the past because the past sets the terms and conditions, and you'll just repeat the same mistakes if you ignore the past. All right, we'll redraft that letter and move forward with that.
Right?
Okay. Let's see. Trash recycling RFQ, I'm just about done drafting the language for that. I will get that out to the board hopefully this week.
Right.
And then we can review that come the next select board meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
Comcast contract is up in 28, I believe, without having looking at it again. And I'm going to be making liaison with them to find out what exactly that entails and what resources we might gain from engaging in this contract with Comcast so we can move forward. Town hall fashion we talked about. Trick or treat time.
5:30 to 7:30.
Period. 5:30 to 7:30?
Would we consider keeping that consistent unless an exception needs to be made, like we chose the date to be consistent?
Yeah, the only reason is like last year we changed it because of the library and they wanted a little more darkness because of, it's my understanding, maybe doing something again.
And you mentioned traffic patterns in the last year.
It's definitely different.
Mhm.
Half an hour, that time of year. But obviously 31st, you guys voted to have it
Mhm.
move forward the 31st unless something comes up. 5:30 to 7:30. I mean, that's what it was last year and
And that's on a Friday of this year, so it'll be a weekend and 31st is Friday.
it's,
Yeah, so we're good on that. All right, I had a conversation this week with the benefactor of the town for the ALS budget and where that is going. The numbers are coming in very good. I don't know if you follow Next Door Exeter, but there's been some consternation on there, which Chris Roosevelt has addressed in that situation. There's plans for a new fly car, an ALS car, to be based in Stratham at the Stratham Fire Department. And that will take place in January. And that car will be donated, a brand new vehicle, and the whole
Amazing.
cost, not only of the vehicle, but outfitting is being covered by a donation. One of the things that we're going to have to deal with, just very cursorily, we have, this year was covered by a foundation. This coming year is covered by a foundation. We put a warrant article and was that 25,000, Michael?
This past year, yeah.
We put 25,000 from non undesignated funds from our, basically from our surplus into that. And in my conversations with Chris Roosevelt, one of the things they're looking at is basing, there's, well, I think 110,000 people that fall within this ballpark
Mhm.
of what is being covered by ALS. And they want to shift over by populace charge, by a rate charging on the population in the communities. And what it would boil down to is approximately full price, full pay for the town would be $40 a head, which comes out to a substantial sum of approximately $68,000. Now, some of that I would offer, and I will probably have discussions with some old heads here. We can take some of that out of undesignated funds, like a warrant article, partially depending on where we're at on that status. And there was concern whether that, whatever we decide to charge 20, to bill for 20 or $40 per person per annum. When you're watching a family member, a child, a parent, a spouse in need of ALS, $40 is cheap money.
Yeah.
But when you add it all up and you throw a budget hardball right down the center of the plate at 68,000, that's a boatload of money. So that is something we as a board are going to have to look at in great depth. I, for one, ALS to me is not even optional. We just have to figure out how we're going to fund it and carry this weight. So that's something that we're going to be dealing with as we work our way through the budgets come fall.
Is the hospital, what responsibility do they have to foot the bill on some of it?
Absolutely.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that
That's the
they,
way the business model is, and Exeter did it for free for 30 years. And they claim they lost a lot of money, like 1.1 or $1.2 million for the past 20 years. But you go, how can you justify losing that kind of money without increasing? But it all goes into CMC billing and recovery from the insurance. It's a huge quagmire,
Mhm.
and it's a huge issue. We are getting, Janet Stevens with the executive council has managed to secure funding for the Beth Israel buyout of Exeter Hospital that will last for probably the next year or two before that well goes dry. There's talk, Kelly is fully supportive of ALS, and there's questions about, okay, can we get the state to chip in some funds for this because this is a statewide issue? But it's still going to come out of the tax pocket one way or another. And if property taxes, it doesn't matter how it's going to go, but it's an expense we have to deal with.
Yeah.
So,
I guess just like police, fire, that's just another.
and one of the confusing facts about this in my conversations with Chris is people see the fire department and the ambulance service show up and they go, well, why do we need ALS? Because they are not cognizant of the responsibilities and the scope of care that the ALS service will provide. And so there needs to be an education aspect as we move forward as what the scope of ALS care is. And as far as like ambulances, there's been substantial training by Plastow and the regional ALS services, increasing the skill sets of EMT basics and EMT advanced, what they can and cannot do, and also the dispatchers when ALS is needed. ALS during the daytime is out the door within 1 minute. At nighttime, they're out the door within 2 minutes, whereas at the hospital, it would take 15 to 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, because the paramedics were working on the floor. They had to pull them off the floor and get them into the ALS. So the service and response time is significantly improved. Process is moving forward strongly. They've apparently got numbers on every aspect of it. But I just wanted to touch base on that because that is going to be a real crunch for us come budget. Anything else?
Chief Young, possibly Chief Buxton, Lieutenant Blaze, and myself are meeting with Scott Vogel from the Rockingham County Planning Commission. Thank you, RPC, to follow up from the Main Street traffic safety topics that we've been covering. So that is a work in progress.
What's that going to be?
Tomorrow morning. And that's here at Town Hall. It is just a small meeting to brainstorm ideas, springboarding from the transcript from the last meeting, and to find out any resources we are eligible for or could potentially be eligible for that would help us, and explore low-cost options for things we could do in the short term so that we can bring that information back to the board and back to the community to look at next steps. No decisions will be made. Nothing formal is going to happen. It's really a matter of pulling in the RPC to explore what ideas and resources they can contribute to what the state already contributed at the last meeting.
2 questions. What time and will there be minutes from the meeting?
9:30 a.m. tomorrow, and yes, there'll be minutes from the meeting. Absolutely. And I followed up as well with Steve Yevich on the trustees of trust funds from the annual audit and talked about that. He's also invested in increasing the meetings, keeping the minutes in their documentation in a more formal way for future auditing, because similar things happened with them that resulted in the audit report reading the way that it did. And we touched on the topic of the town not having a formal investment policy, although the trustees of trust funds have an investment policy that's managed by 3 bearings, I think they're called. But the town itself, again, we're looking at things that are going to be on the ballot, or things that we need language for, changes coming down the line that we're going to be looking at for next season. And so we might be looking at the importance of completing that if that's a priority for the town, just because it was in the audit. And Sue has some examples of other towns' investment policies for us to review if needed, as well as our 3 bearings investment policy that the trustees basically follows. So there could be plenty of information for us to pull from that moving forward.
Okay, great.
And those were the 2 things that I was following.
Mark, you had?
Yeah, one comment we had last meeting was to approach Concom about their help with reaching out to CSX, the railroad, on how we could approach them to utilize some open space that's underutilized. And Josh Lent offered some ideas. I'll just very quickly, he said that we could, and I forwarded this email off to you.
I didn't see it late.
So, yeah, yep. So for temporary or non-ownership access, that we would reach out to them for a what would be called a right of entry permit. So we'll take a closer look at that, at how we would put together a letter. He did designate the tax maps on which ones, which parcels we would be requesting that right of way, so to speak, and we could have public access to the property without necessarily purchasing the property.
Did Josh references there's a particular template or format that CSX uses?
Yes,
Or
to the portal.
I see that.
Yeah, so the portal that we would log into and then make the request from there. So
If we take it then that that'll be for action with the Concom?
yes, yeah. So he did offer some useful information in that regard. And last point is that you saw in the email that and I will press them this week, that the website is going to start transitioning this week. Yet to be, we'll see what happens, but 9/8.
Excellent. All right. Is there anything from the audience? Mark?
Evening, my name is Mark Steyer. I live on 3 Heath Drive. I'd like to ask the select board to approve the use of town funds for the library HVAC system.
No, we'll take it into consideration. We are going to invite the Board of Trustees and the Friends of the Library in to have that discussion. Were you here for that part when we talked about it? I was. Yeah. We give what did we do last year? 68,000 out of tax dollars to the library. And we're just trying to find ways to mitigate the expense to the taxpayers. What's your logic on it, Mark, if I can ask?
My feeling is that I've been in town now almost 6 years, and that our library is inadequately supported by our town. And by that, I mean our town taxpayers, myself included. So I would like to see our town provide more support. The library is a potentially tremendous resource for the education of our children. And by coming up short compared to, I think, other towns nearby, I think we're falling by the wayside in terms of showing our support for the kids, if not many other people in town.
And you're cognizant of how much money that the Friends of the Library is sitting on?
No, I don't represent the Friends of the Library.
They've got about $225,000 spend as Friends of the Library for the library. So that's why we wanted to engage them in conversation as far as tapping some of that resource to cover the HVAC system.
I appreciate you. You may wish to discuss that with them. I don't represent them.
Oh, I know you don't, but I'm just giving you background on it.
Right. But I actually have some background independent of what you're saying, but I don't want to give in any sense that I represent them in any way. I think it's a town responsibility for the HVAC system, and the town ought to step up to repair them.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Michael Sununu, weather's getting colder. I wanted to ask the board, and you can deal with it now or you can put it on the agenda. Newfields Community Fund last year did the skating rink on the seller's property. I'd like to consider doing that again. Where the town comes in is this typically went on as a rider on the insurance, like any other activity that would occur down there. If you guys are comfortable with that, I think we're going to try to make the rink a little larger. We got the electrical installed, so we'll have lights easy for anybody to turn them on. And we'll try to move forward with that if you guys are okay.
Any observations from the board?
No, I think it's great, and I don't think we should wait.
I think we can knock that out right now.
Well, I assume you guys got to make sure it's okay with the insurance, so. If you guys want to just follow up with it and just let me know, assuming we'll move forward, it'll probably go up, around Thanksgiving is what we'll try to
get it up and.
It's probably the sense of the board that this is a go. We'll do the admin drill for the insurance, but it wasn't an issue last year.
Thank you very much.
Right? Does anybody have anything else?
And just, I wanted to acknowledge your comment, just to say that we did have Win in, and we did talk with them about that, saying, well, can we
Library.
talk, yeah, with the library, yeah, and asking, well, can they chip in for this? I don't think it's a matter of not supporting the library, because if we did have the funds, we would probably be like, fine. But we're tapped right now. That's the issue. We're tapped until March at least. And so,
If I may, Mark. And I don't really know our town,
To the microphone, please.
I don't really know our town finances very well, I acknowledge. But I have the sense that year after year since I've been here, there've been surplus funds that go into various pots, trustee trusts and so forth. And that there's no reason why that money either couldn't be returned to the taxpayers or could be put into the library, for example, rather than putting into one of these trust funds.
Yeah.
The money's not as short as I don't think it's as short as you make it sound.
Well, I would just offer flashing back to just what we're looking for with ALS, which is a huge burden,
Right.
that we're gonna have to take.
And we, our taxpayers, need to step up to that shortfall.
And that's fine. The only thing I'd offer is, I don't disagree with anything you're saying as far as considering and listening to your point. The other point I would offer is, there's a lot of folks in this town, even though we are in the top 10% per capita of income in the state of New Hampshire, we have a substantial population in this community that can barely make ends meet month to month. And as a per officer, I get calls from people that have $18 or $25 left for the last 9 or 10 days of the month. So I totally understand your point. That said, I feel like I have a personal responsibility and a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that we maintain and take care of those in need. We have the resources we do without increasing the burden. And then I'd also offer to you, Mark, there's a lot of folks that grew up in this town who no longer live in this town because they can't afford to live here. And we've seen a lot of seniors move out because they can't afford to pay their property taxes. So these points are all valid. I totally understand and appreciate your enthusiasm.
I appreciate your points as well, Obie.
I go, at what point? So if somebody buys a $1.2 million, $1.5 million house, another $50 a month or $80 is nothing. Somebody that's living in a house that they were born in and raised in, and they're struggling. And we can't turn a cheek and look the other way and not make sure that we don't burden people so that our seniors who've lived here their whole life have to move out and that the youths can't afford to move into town. And so balancing, and I'm not denying the point and validity of your point, Mark. I'm just throwing what I see as a concern and an obligation on my part.
Those are good points as well.
And that's why we sit down and just talk about it and figure out a way to make it happen. And that's the way which I think it should be done. Okay, all right. Anything else from the floor? Nick?
Probably for Chief John. Do we expect a record traffic for that thunder over New Hampshire on this road this weekend?
I don't think so.
It's been a long time since the last air shows, but that could be huge. I've been.
They're talking 85, 90,000 people up at PC Saturday and Sunday. There's no way I'm going anywhere near Portsmouth this weekend.
Ride bicycle.
Think about.
That's view.
What's that?
That's view, man.
That's what we're getting.
It would be worth seeing. It is the Blue Angels, as opposed to that other team. Who are they? I can't remember. In that case, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Consider this meeting closed at 8:44. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you.